Recording here. Welcome everyone to the Mastermind Book Club. Tonight we review an important book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Who was Malcolm Gladwell? Or who is? Sorry, he's still alive. Let's find out through this book. Does anyone have anything to say on Malcolm Gladwell, on his works, on his other works as well?
Yes.
Reggie. Yes, Reggie.
I mean, I won't speak on his other works. I'll just touch on this one. We were just talking prior to you recording, and I touched on at least a couple of books that I read of his. I thought I had read 3, but it may be 2 prior to this, which are not the Outliers, but the tipping point,
yes,
and David and Goliath. But this one was pretty good. Some good meat in here, some good stuff to really work with. And what I will speak to in particular is this idea of, when it talks about, what's the name of this book? I'm having a little mental block here.
Outliers.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
And the Outliers. And basically what I'll speak to on this is that you just need to be in a situation where you get at least enough, or that you are enough. Right. So outliers are typically going to be people or things that basically are out of the norm. Correct. The ones that are excelling beyond all those others that are excelling. The little kid that's the smallest, or the kids that are the little small, like the small way below the percentiles of height, or on the side of small or big, or the side of I'm sorry, I said small side of height, or in terms of like size, like how much you weigh. The things that stand out so much so that they're beyond the norm, but beyond the average.
Yes.
In the case of successes and such, would be the people who excel in terms of their jobs, in terms of their like if they're athletes, in terms of just all aspects of life. People that either stand out where they might be successes. You could be an outlier where you could be not a success, but just that you're like outside of that, I guess, that the main portion of society in different aspects. But when it comes to, we're talking about this book in terms of, I guess, when you really want to look at like succeeding, is to put yourself in a situation where you at least are enough. So like, for example, you don't have to be the one that has the highest IQ. You don't have to be the smartest in the class. You don't have to be the prettiest or whatever. But if you could put yourself in a situation, or be somehow thrust to a situation where you have enough, in a sense of just being put around other people who may have that much more than you in terms of the intellect and such, you're still going to be able to benefit from that, because just being in that situation will ultimately give you opportunity in terms of whether, through osmosis or whatever, or just being influenced by others, that it's going to allow you to at least get some of the things that you wouldn't otherwise get if you were in a situation that wasn't as beneficial or as conducive to maybe successes or what have you.
Yes.
So, you put yourself in those situations, and therefore it's going to allow you that opportunity. And so you had studies like what they did with University of Michigan, when they looked at affirmative action, and you had, affirmative action getting blacks, Hispanics, whatever, who are lower grades and such into these schools. And then you had on the other side, the whites griping about it, saying, why are they being given opportunity to go to the school? Because we do much better than them or whatever. But we know situations, circumstance, society is such that disproportionately peoples of color, if you want to call it that term, are, put in areas where they don't have, as much opportunity. And there's so many conditions that are negative that go against them being able to excel, whatever. So they're thrust in these situations, or they put in these situations where they struggle more or whatever. They have to deal with, just conditions that, people who have more wealth and opportunity aren't dealing with on a day in and day out. So they can just go and learn. So anybody did these studies, and they looked at them and they said, well, instead of looking at the beginning of when these kids go into the schools, let's look at when they come out. And what they realized is that when they came out of the schools, that they weren't failing, at all. They were actually doing as well, if not better, certainly as well as their white counterparts. Once they came out and they had careers, they had graduated, they were living their lives, right? So because they were given the opportunity to go into these schools, and they knew just enough, they had just enough to be able to perform and compete with their peers, that was sufficient for them to be able to come out on the other side of success, right? And so just like other areas, you can have, if you look at like sports, and maybe at one point, like say in the NBA, obviously there's other things that come into it, which with respect to talent on the court. But if you look at height, they'll say, well, on average, like someone below 6 feet or whatever is not going to make it in an NBA. But once you get to 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", there's an opportunity now. You have a better chance of being in there and going and doing your thing, and maybe up to 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in there that you may have a bit more of an advantage because you're a little taller, and if you have the certain skill sets, or whatever, it's going to allow you to have that advantage over your competitors or whatever on the court. But then there's a point where after a certain amount of height, that competitive advantage, that advantage goes away, right? So there's that point of just having enough. Of course, again, factoring those other things that come into play in terms of on the court and basketball, whatever, and sports, whatever, which could be your skills or whatever. But then beyond that, there's a point where, a lot of that starts to fade. So I just keep reiterating this whole idea of just being able to have enough, just being able to be in the right situation. That's just enough. Being able to have enough of the opportunity, being able to be put in a position where you're around people who are excelling, and just enough, or you have just enough to be able to at least hang, so that you can make your way through that. You can spend the time and the efforts or whatever is necessary for you to move forward and get to a point where you start to thrive. And then one other thing is that once in that position of that position or that situation where you are granted that opportunity, is that you start to, once you have these successes, and it's sort of an unfair aspect of society, but it's like the way it has been laid out is that success just brings more success and more opportunity. So even though you don't need much more, once you get to a certain level, you actually get more benefits. As like you look at the wealthy, and they don't need more. Like you get to a certain level of income, you're doing pretty well. You can take care of your bills, your family, your extras, and all of that stuff. But then you see, as people go up the ladder of wealth, they actually get more breaks, bigger tax breaks, more incentives, and all that good stuff, right? Because part of that, of course, on the other side is the fact that the system says, well, since you're creating so many jobs, you're producing so much wealth, we'll incentivize you to do that much more. But it's interesting how that works, because really, on the other hand, maybe there are people who really, 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 really need help on the other side that are coming up short. And the system may give you a certain amount of help, but they also know that probably on the one hand, you're sort of more like a leech or parasite or whatever, and they're only going to do but so much for you. But those who are actually in a position that are going to create more, and when it especially comes down to more money for society and doing that sort of thing and pushing the society forward in the way of monetarily, there's certainly going to be a lot more given to you to make sure that you are able to continue to keep those numbers churning, so that you obviously will benefit yourself, but certainly benefiting the powers that be, the government and so on and so forth. So that's some of the points I make. There was one other thing I was thinking of, but I can't think of it right now. But I guess I'll just stop with that for now.
That's quite a lot that you covered there, so I appreciate that, Reggie. Martha, welcome, Martha.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Martha.
Hello, Martha.
Hi,
So we are reviewing and we are recording here the summary, and I wanted to see if there's any one thing that you remembered from this book that is memorable, or
I got a couple
yes.
quick things that came to mind while Reggie was talking. I might have listened to this book many years ago, and something he was saying about the kids in the school, that if they were given the opportunity and means to do just as well. So there was a project many years ago. I don't know if it was I think it was in New York City, where a billionaire, he took on a school, and he provided the poor inner city kids with everything they needed to compete with the other counterparts, even though their scores and scholastic aptitude was ranked much lower than their competitors. I mean, the comparison schools. These kids, once they were given opportunity, like Reg was saying, they excelled and did just as well as the other counterparts. So one of the things I got from this is that no one starts with nothing. You know, the rags to riches stories, they sometimes uh, have different circumstances that contribute to their success. So I was thinking along the lines like some people are helped, or some people are in the right situation to succeed. Everyone might have the ability, but they're not in the right, I guess, position to actually be able to take advantage of different opportunities to be successful. So like uh, so if you're born in the poorest part of India, and you know your mother is a farm worker, your dad's a farm worker, and all you know is the farms, 9 out of 10, you're not in the best possibility to become a billionaire. And circumstances do contribute to how you can succeed. Success is not always the individual achievement that uh, one succeeds on alone. I mean, success is not always the individual achievement. One may succeed on. No one can succeed on just, I guess, their efforts and success alone. Everybody is helped. It's always a team effort when people are very successful. I'm sure, you know, if you look at your own lives and even in mine, there are people who've helped me get to the point where I am, and they give you that pathway to be an outliner. They give you that pathway to be exceptional. So they kind of like give you the yellow brick road, and it will lead you to the magic castle. um, Opportunities are given no matter what. So there are many opportunities out there. They're all around us, like Reg was saying. And sometimes it takes much more, like I was saying before, than your talent and your intellect. You have to actually have some type of personal advantage. Just like you with the stocks and Reg, uh, working at Bloomberg. You guys have special advantages that you're able to take, that you're able to use as a roadmap, as a guide. And these outliners, they have that guide. They're able to do extraordinary well because of the positioning that they're put in. And it's assumption is part of the myth that people are self-made, or self-made man or self-made woman, as the expression goes. But he who earns his success through hard work and innate talent. Innate talent has a lot to do with people being very successful. Some people, they just don't have it. Things are just hard for them to do, hard for them to master. Even such as schoolwork, as Reg knows about, dealing with one of his family members. They just don't have the natural ability to succeed. And being in the perfect place or the perfect position, or even having the perfect roadmap like the yellow brick road, they still not going to succeed. They're still not going to go to where they need to go. Uh, Success falls well outside of the norm. So you can't be average and expect to really be successful. It does take work. And I'm one that believes that if you work hard enough, and even if you don't have the talent, your hard work could help you succeed and get to the point where you want to be. You could work past talent is what I'm saying in short. Those are just some of the things that I was kind of like got out from this.
I- I'll
Right.
add to that
Yeah.
last point just real quick, because you mentioned hard work. So this is one other thing I was probably thinking about, and this is one of the major principles of the book, is this whole 10,000 hours piece, which basically, if you put the work in, so 10,000 hours is supposed to be the level at which you become a master at something,
Yes.
and you could become proficient at something at way less than that. But there's a big difference between the person who's put in the 1,000, 2,500 to 10,000 hours worth of time into a thing, that basically you look at what they're able to do, even with just not having, maybe all the natural gifts. The natural gifts obviously will help that much more. But if you have natural gifts and put in 10,000, or you just put in the 10,000 alone, you're going to see a difference in the way that someone does whether a job or an activity or sport or whatever, plays an instrument. Any one of those things will be noticeably different with having put in that time. So what all that other stuff that we said about conditions and factors that go into your successes, and with being an outlier, having all of those things come together. I'm sorry, the situation where one may be an outlier, you could be the biggest of outliers if you have all those conditions met, but just at least having some of those conditions met would necessarily set up a situation where you can achieve, in this case we're talking successes, these levels of successes, because of the fact of those different criteria being in place. So, but 10,000 hours is that major thing that's spoken about in the Outliers, where levels of mastery happen. So definitely wanted to touch on that.
So
And
thank
another
you,
thing I was even
guys.
thinking
Yeah,
about is
I just
one
want to
quick point.
go ahead.
Even our former president, Donald Trump, he wasn't the brightest in his family. His older brother was actually more in tune with real estate, more in tune with the success principles. He kind of like fell into it because of his brother's disdain after a while with the dad. So he's like an example to me of not really having all the particulars, but being able to be put in a proper position with the proper surroundings, the proper tools. And guess what? He became president.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Just a
Um,
point.
no, I appreciate that, Charles and Reggie. I really appreciate that. And so, like to give a chance to Martha and see what one thing did she pick up from this book. Martha?
Okay, here. I think the education, as she meant, depends on the genes, depends what you eat, exercise, your lifestyle, family, friends, in all the decisions you have in life. And everybody is different. We live in society. There's some people have money, some people they don't have nothing, and we compare um, how the education is between both, and you can see people be able to give their children a better education, better school, after school programs, vacation programs, going to different activities like museum, libraries, special classes. So unfortunately, the people they don't have that kind of money. They can afford it to send their children to the special camps, special abilities. So then behind, not because they're smarter than the other ones, not because they work hard, and they have more tools to get better in education. That's the problem we have. We compare the people with the low income, we had the same choice the people with the higher income. Maybe they be equal, both of them, but that's the life we live. And we can see they compare the people for China, for Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, and Japan. They work long hours. The school is more hours than we have in the United States. The vacation is more short than we have. We have like 3 months vacation. They don't have maybe a month vacation. So does mean they work harder for education, and you can see the difference. The difference is if you have not because you don't have you're not smart, no, because you work harder to get a better future, a better education. That's the point of this book, and I really love it. It
Thank you.
was very great.
Martha, thank you all for your opinions on this book. And I wanted to add to three things, very important things. Number one, on the life of Malcolm Gladwell, because it relates to this book. He was born during the time that being a slave was prominent, and he was born to a Jamaican mother, and his father was of Canadian descent. Malcolm Gladwell, you look at him, just like me, you wouldn't be able to tell that we have people in our families who are dark skinned, who are of African descent, or Indian descent, because I have both. Indian as in, I would say, Caribbean island Indian. So now, how does this relate? Malcolm Gladwell came from a mother who didn't have much, however, excelled in her studies and wrote books. And his father, I believe, was a lawyer. So that background catapulted him to exceeding on a certain level that would not have been accessible to anyone else. In Jamaica, at the time, there weren't slaves in Jamaica. You either had status or you didn't. And Malcolm Gladwell didn't experience being a slave firsthand because he was in a place, he was born in Jamaica where being a slave was not existent. However, when his mother came to Canada, she experienced firsthand being negated, going into certain homes where they didn't want his mother, and so on. And that has happened to me, even with my color. It's happened to me somewhere on Route 66, somewhere in Indiana. That happened to me. So I know I'm very white skinned. I know I'm very pale, but to certain people, that doesn't matter. And I've heard it firsthand. So that, is it going to end? No. That's one thing that I wanted to let you know in reference to Malcolm Gladwell's life. Number two, in reference to what Martha said, no specific order, in reference to schooling, I grew up in a poor background in Lower Manhattan. My brother and I were raised in a studio apartment with my mother, my grandmother, our uncle, our aunts, about 3 of them. We all were raised in a studio apartment. When I was growing up, if I got one present for Christmas or my birthday, that was all I got. No matter who was invited, if I got one present, that was it. I don't remember having the best presents. I don't remember ever owning an Atari system, which was the game of the time. However, I was fortunate enough to be in a spot that I got lucky. So you have to have some sort of luck. Now, I went to a public school that the principal had a relationship with a Catholic priest. The principal was Jewish at the time. He's still alive. I haven't seen him recently, but this principal changed my life because he recommended me to a program that changed me forever. This was when I was 11 years old. And as I started going to this program, which was Catholic, I got the privilege that Martha was describing. I got to study year round. I didn't have much of a break. I was either studying from 7 in the morning until 9 or 10 p.m. at night, or I was in a camp up in Lake Placid where I had no freedom. So I probably had 1 week off after school in June, and then I had another 2 weeks off at the end of August. So 3 weeks out of the year is what I pretty much had, and a few days in Christmas, a few days in midwinter recess and so on, because we used to have trips. So I got that privilege of experiencing firsthand what Malcolm Gladwell talks about, being able to study year round. Now, how do you get your students or your older kids to have their kids do this? It's very easy. Just sign them up to learn some program and pay them if you need to. Incentivize them in some way. My son is learning trading right now. I'm not paying him, but I am incentivizing him. You could have this by the time you're 25 if you start now. Because becoming an expert, a 10,000 hour person, requires 3.5 hours per day, 300 days out of the year. Right, Martha?
Yeah.
Right, Reg? Right, Charles? 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours times 3,000 hours in 10.
That's 1,000 though.
No, three.
That would be for 10 years.
3.5 hours. Oops, I'm getting my calculator because I calculated. 3.5.
That's only 1,000. That's a little bit more than 1,000.
3.5 times 300 days. That's 1,050 times 10. is 10,500 hours. So I'm saying 3.5 just as an average. So it's a little bit less. So you can do.
For 10 years, yeah, for 10
That's
years.
correct. Yes, 3.5 hours. There are people who do it in less. There are people who do 8 hours a day times 365 days, which is almost 3,000 hours. And in 3 years, they're pretty much an expert. Do you have that time? I don't.
That's college.
What's that? Sorry?
That's what you paid for college.
So now Malcolm Gladwell describes two or three different groups, and I want to tell you one of those groups. Number one is Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Andy. I don't remember the partner of Bill Gates, but it was Andy something. Those three were born within 6 months of each other in the same year, and they were all three of them successful. Right? Is that a coincidence?
You mean?
Yes. Good. Good. Reg?
I was going to say, did you mean Paul Allen? Because you mentioned his
Paul
partner.
Allen. Sorry. I thought it was Andy. Paul Allen. I'm guessing it's Paul Allen. I just don't remember the name. It was mentioned in the
Paul
book.
Allen was the guy who co-started Microsoft with him. He's since passed away, like a couple of years ago. But
So,
Paul Allen he was born in 56, I think it was.
so that was the same year, within 6 months, that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were born. Now, is this coincidence or not? Well, the way that Malcolm explains it is that they were at the proper age, that by the time that they were 14, that computers started to come about, that they all were in the right alignment to be the experts. Now, why were there only 2 or 3 experts? Because there were minimal computers. Computers were not around everywhere. So Bill Gates got lucky because parents donated money to have a computer system, and he got to get free time on the computer system, and so did the other 2. It's just that I don't know the full story of the other 2. So the reality is they were in the right place at the right time to be catapulted into the computer age. Now, if there would have been 1,000,000 computers out there, then there would have been many more successful people in the computer industry as successful as they were, cutting down their success so that everyone would have, equal access to success, right? That's one. Number 2 is there are athletes in Canada who are hockey players, as well as across the world, soccer players that are only or mostly picked out by the month that you are born to play in the league. Meaning that if you are not born in January, February, or possibly March, your chances of being in a professional soccer league are very slim. Why is that? Because at the maturity of the age for that year means that you are ahead of the people who are in your similar age, similar year. You are ahead by several months. Now, can you imagine if there were soccer leagues or hockey leagues where there were people who were at the end of the year as well as the beginning of the year, then there'd be twice as many successful people in sports as well. So these are the things that Malcolm Gladwell was trying to hint at. It's not just pure luck, it's also timing. It's also, there's a certain system that you're brought up in, and if you are of age, of the specific qualities that people are looking for, then bam, you qualify. But the real big story in all of this is the journey in getting to wherever you want to go. Is the journey. I know maybe you don't want to hear it, but that is where the excitement is. Whoopee. The excitement of getting whatever you want is the journey. And that's the bottom line that Malcolm Gladwell is trying to tell us. Yes, you might not be Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, or one of these successful sports players. However, it's your journey to whatever it is that you want, and how badly do you want it. And that's it. So, any other questions? I don't know if Reggie wanted to say anything else, but Malcolm Gladwell mainly when he started this book, he didn't expect to find all these statistics lining up with my background, with probably either your backgrounds or people that you know, because whatever it is that you did in your life, did you work? Did you study during the summers? Did you study extra on the weekends? I got lucky where someone paid for my, what is it called? The SAT prep work from Kaplan. I would not have been able to afford it. I got lucky in that I got a full scholarship to high school. I got lucky in that I got a full ride to college. I mean, I don't know if you did or if you didn't, but all I can tell you is being in the right place at the right time and doing things in a certain way, that's what get you there. For me, I was not looking to be at the best college possible or at the best high school possible. No matter where I went, I had predetermined that I was going to excel. And that's the attitude that's needed.
That's some good points you make there.
And,
A good statement.
The reality is sometimes we feel, oh, if I don't get $1 million from this job, that's too bad. Well, I just finished listening to mostly audio on a new book, and it correlates to this book. Good to Great is the name of the book. Good to Great audio book. And as I was listening to it, it says how most of the CEOs out there are average.
Yeah, they don't come from the top schools.
No, it doesn't matter about this. No. Meaning, the ones that come from the top schools in general are average.
Oh
It's
yeah,
the,
you
it's
don't
the
need to
other
be the
way
top.
around. No.
You just need to be you
So,
need to be you need to be among the top.
so the CEOs who have excelled are the ones who are in their minds still attempting to be the right CEO for the company. In other words, they don't feel that they're the right CEO until they accomplish X or Y. Whereas the CEOs from these top universities are demanding top pay with top compensation with all the benefits, while the ones who excel get the lowest pay, the lowest compensation plans, and there you have it. It's because they have a passion and an attitude for service, one way or another. So there will be some CEOs who will cut everyone out, right? Streamline, just like at Citigroup. My brother's been gone through like 4 or 5 rounds, and luckily he has not been fired because he's faked heart attacks and so on at the times when he was going to get fired, and it worked. He's still there. So, hey, I mean, I find it funny, but it works. It's worked for him anyhow. So the reality is that if you're looking to excel in the place, it's not about the monetary in essence, it's about the process that you're going through and who is going to help you get there. Are you going to fire people? Are you going to hire the right people? Are you going to let go of the wrong people? So the right CEOs will communicate to the people who are potential leaders within a company or in existence and let them know, hey, I need to get this done. Are you with me or are you not? The majority of CEOs won't have those one-on-one conversations. And that's where they fail because they don't know what's happening behind the other managers in a company. So the reality is that as to be an outlier is to do exactly what we're doing here in this book club. That's plain and simple. Until we get it right, we're meant to be here, right? Even if you get it right, you're welcome here.
You still stay. There's never an ending.
Correct. And that's how the successful CEOs do it, is never seeing themselves as a CEO, but seeing themselves that they have not been able to satisfy the board of whatever corporation it is, that they are the adequate CEO for the company. And that never ends. Sure enough, when some of these CEOs are fired or their contract ends, the company changes. It usually goes down. And if you don't believe me, you can research this book. I mean, if you want to read it for next week, it's called Good to Great, and it's only 3 hours and change long, 3 hours and 15 minutes. But it talks about the top qualities needed to be a good, from good to great. Are you interested?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
so we'll work on that book. I'll post it in the morning. And
I'm familiar with the book.
oh, you are. So
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Reggie knows all these books. That's very good. For me, I'm going to listen to that book again, and I'm going to listen to another one because I like the message inside this book. And because we should be all be training to be CEOs of our own lives, of the lives of those we touch, and the corporations that we will one day become in contact and be able to assist on a specific level, right? So it's good to have that practice on a daily basis. And please, everyone, even if you don't show your pictures, have some important background that you want to achieve. It doesn't have to be like my Lamborghini, but it can be your Lamborghini in whatever it is. It could be a house.
It's interesting you say this. This is a house that I had on one of my cable routes. And the gentleman, if you look at it, he had all of this you're looking at is his land,
So
including the water.
why can't you qualify for that as well,
Oh, I
right?
can.
And
Absolutely.
if that's what you want, if you have what you want, then you should be aiming for something bigger or something better or something different. So don't settle for less. So next week, I'd like to see a picture of each of you with something that resembles whatever you're going after. You should be relaying that message to the world, to me. When you see me, I either have a car, I usually have a book in the background, or I might have a plane in the background, something that relates to me, to my goals. All right, so let's communicate this to the world. Yep, that's that, Charles. That's the image I want as well. Want to be working on the beach until 10 a.m. and then, going and enjoying the beach after that. All right. So, anything else you want to add before we go? Going once, going twice. So, thank you everyone for being a part of the book club, Mastermind Book Club. I know that reading or building your knowledge account might not be the easiest thing, but it is one of the everlasting things in our spiritual life, right? And we won't know the reality of this until our bodies cease to exist. Just remember, that's the only thing we'll probably take is all the good things we do for others and the good things that we learn on a daily basis. All right. So keep that knowledge account alive. I know people have given up. I know that you say you don't have time. You do have time. You're just not creative. Download a book. Maybe even pay for YouTube like I do on a monthly basis, $10 in a month. I can download any of those audios. All right. Whatever it is, do it. I'm not asking you to do it. If you can do it, great. If you can afford it, great. If you cannot, then become a member like Reggie is of what's the program that you're in, Reggie? Audible, I believe.
I'm not in it. I just have an account.
Okay, so you
I
have
don't
an
pay for
account.
it though.
Okay,
I don't
well,
pay monthly.
you're lucky then. So
Well, I don't pay. I don't. I just buy books on occasion. I have a bunch of books that I
perfect.
bought.
So just be aware that there are programs out there. You join the one that you want. Right? Sooner or later, a lot of these books will not be available. We're very fortunate to be listening to 40 or 50 books a year. So it's up to you how far you want to take this. And remember, I just gave you an idea of, to do it in 3 years time, you got to put in I believe it's 8 hours a day. No, 8.5 hours a day or something like that. So can you do that much? Well, maybe you can, maybe you cannot, but that's what it takes to get to your goals. But the process is where life happens. Because once you achieve your goal, you'll be just like a kid receiving a present on Christmas Day. Do you know what they do? Within an hour, 30 minutes after they receive their presents, oh, they move on. That's how it is with goals. That's what I have learned from successful people. You've got to have further goals beyond that once you achieve it. So get ready, get set, and go. Everyone have a great week. Thank you very much for joining us on the Mastermind Book Club. And I hope you learned at least one thing out of each and every book. That makes all the difference. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Take care, Reg, Charles, Martha.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye, Martha.
Bye, Charles.